These are your Unit 1A, Integers and Rational Numbers, Day 1 notes. Because this is your first set of video notes, I'm going to review a few key things. First of all, the name of the assignment is always going to be here in red, Unit 1A Notes, Day 1. Next, you'll have the standard that's being addressed below. These notes we're looking at Standard 1B. I can create symbolic representation. This is the overall standard, and there's little things or objectives that go with each standard. So for this, I can create symbolic representation for a verbal representation involving subtraction and involving addition. That is a fancy way of saying, I give you a situation aloud, and you can take that and write an equation or write it down using numbers. So in order to get started on that, let's look at positive and negative integers verbal representations. So what that means is like what words give us the hint that a number might be positive and what words give us a hint that a number might be negative. Or we could also look at it, what tells us to add and what tells us to subtract. So the first example I have here is gained. If you gain something, you're adding it, that's a positive. An example of negative is lost. So if I lose something, it's getting smaller, so it's negative. So another very easy example that we can think of right here would be add. For add, or we're adding, that is a positive. And then we can also think over here, what a negative that goes with that is subtract or subtracting. I do not have the best handwriting. I try to type as often as possible to help you guys out. Okay, so here are two that I wrote down. What I want you to do now is pause the video and just try to think of as many as you can words that would tell you a number is positive or to add, as well as a number is negative or to subtract. And a good way to do it is if you think of the positive, what is the opposite that goes with that? And that would be your negative. So go ahead, pause the video and see what you can put down. Okay, I have a larger list here of positives and negatives. You may have some of these and you may have found others. These are not the only words that represent positive numbers, and these are not the only words that represent negative numbers or a decrease or an increase. These are just some of them. So I want you to look at this list and make sure you have all of these written down. Okay? You are doing this video in class, so now that you're at this part, I want you to ask me for help. If you have words that are not listed here, but you think that they work, just raise your hand, I'll come over and I'll check it out and make sure that you have words that are only representing positive things in the positive column and words that are only representing negative occurrences in the negative column. Okay, once you've done that, move on to the next page. All right, here we're going to write the integer, which is our numerical representation, fancy word for number, for each verbal representation below. And you highlight the key information that helps you write your integer. So we're going to write the number and you're going to highlight what helps you know whether it's positive or negative. And you can think about those key words from the page before this. So here we go. Luciana goes to the store and spends $9 on peppers. So we have to figure out what integer we're going to write from this verbal representation. And I'm going to highlight the key words. So I hear right here, spends $9. Well, if you're spending money, you're losing it. So that would be a -9. Next, Parker lost 3 of his teeth this year. All right, what is my key word? I think about my list and what I know in life from my experiences, and I see lost. Oh, if I lose something, that means there's less. So lost 3. So what does that mean? That means that is a -3. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and try these next 3 on your own. After you have tried them, you press play and check your work. Okay, hopefully you tried these on your own. let's move to this next one. Lynn fell 7 feet. Fell. If you fall, you're going down, so that would be a -7. Next, Gabrielle found 5 additional pencils in his backpack. Well, if you find something, that means you're getting more. So that would be a +5. Next situation, Isabel earned 1 extra credit point on her test. If you earn something, you're getting more. So that would be a positive, earned 1. And we'd represent that with a +1. Make sure that you have all of this right here written down correctly in your notes and also have the information highlighted. I like to color code, so I did my negatives in red and my positives in blue. You don't have to do that, but it could be very helpful to you in the future. Okay, hopefully you have that written down, and now we're gonna go to the next thing. Verbal representation and symbolic representation. So what we're doing, just adding on a little bit more. We can create number sentences or symbolic representation, okay? So you're gonna put the word representations right here, and this is just so you know, like, symbolic representation, what does that mean? Oh, that's a number sentence, because it could be hard to remember, you know, different way of saying it. So just put this down here, so when you get to a problem and you're like, symbolic representation, you're like, oh, what does that mean? You're like, oh yeah, that's a number sentence, I got it. Okay, so let's look at these verbal representations, these situations, and turn them into number sentences or symbolic representation if you want to be fancy. Luciana starts with $10. She goes to the grocery store and spends 7 on peppers. What keywords help us write this expression? So there's 2. We have the word starts. She starts with 10. That means that is your starting point. That is where this 10 comes from right here. Then she spends $7. We know, and we can even look up here, that if you spend money, you're losing it. So you represent that as a negative integer or a -7. You're less, so you're subtracting. Right here it says do not evaluate. We know what 10 minus 7 is. That isn't the purpose of this activity. The purpose of this activity is to take these verbal situations and write them into number sentences. So here's an example. I'm gonna do this next one. Parker had 9 teeth at the beginning of this year. He then lost 3 of them. So what is going on here? So had 9 teeth. So it's important to be aware of your starting point. So he had 9, the start of the year, and then he lost 3 of them. Okay, so we found those keywords, and you can write those down here. So I'm gonna put had here, and also lost. Those are my keywords. And you see how I wrote the color coded them? Had is positive, lost is negative, so that's why they're blue and red. So, and then we can go ahead and we can write this now as our number sentences. Had 9, so started with 9, and lost 3. Okay? All right, perfect. Pause the video and try this next one. Okay, hopefully you tried this one on your own and you identified above and falls as your keywords. So above, 5 feet above, and then falls is negative, so I put that in red. It's you're going down. You start 5 feet above, so you start with the number 5, and then you fall 7, so you subtract 7. Okay, if you did not do that correctly, please change what you have and make sure it's written down right, and let's move on. All right, on this page, you're gonna do the same thing, but instead of writing the keywords, you're just gonna highlight them and write the symbolic expression or number sentence. So I'll do this first one. Gabriel had no pencils. He then found 5 additional pencils in his backpack. All right, so let's highlight. He's got nothing, and then he finds 5. So the symbolic representation, so you can you'll write this as had nothing and then found 5. Okay. Next, you're gonna try these ones on your own, and the reason you try them on your own is to see where you're at. You can kind of judge like, oh, I'm getting this, oh, I'm not getting this, because you'll do it and then you come back and watch the video and I give you the answer. Remember, you do not have to solve or evaluate. Okay, hopefully you tried these on your own and it goes well. Let's go through it. Isabel started with 7. There's 7 points on her test. She then earned 1 extra credit point. Earn is an increase, so +1. Frank checked his bank account and he saw that he had $1,200 in his account on Thursday. Had $1,200. Then on Friday, he deposited $465. So deposit, you're putting more money in, that's a positive, plus $465. Next, Miguel gained 12 yards for his team during the first half. You gain, that's a positive, start with positive 12. At the start of the second half, he lost 8 yards. If you lose, that's a decrease, so -8. Next, John has $10, starts with $10 on his Patriot card. He decided to go get breakfast and spent $2. If you spend, that's a decrease, so -2. Mikhail and his family go hiking. They start at a height of 175 feet. You start at 175 feet and climb 245 feet more. So if you're going more, you're increasing, you're going up. That's a plus 245. Last, Julie has $800 in her bank account. She starts with 800. She deposits 300 more. Deposit means you're putting more in, so that's plus 300. And then she withdraws 200. When you withdraw money, you're taking it out, so that's a decrease, so -200. So this symbolic expression or number sentence has 3 things happening. Start with 800, then you add 300 more, and then you take 200 out. Okay, so make sure you have the correct information recorded in your notes, and then turn this in via Canvas.